Hello, Jefferson. Let's talk about some cool iMovie functions that I've never taught before, something kind of new and interesting for the day. We've talked about the crop tool. We've talked about camera stabilization, but we've never messed with this little artist palette right here. It's called color correction. Let's figure out how it works. First thing you'll need to do, no matter what you are working on, click on your video to make it active. If you click on color correction, you'll have three controls. You've got a slider to the left, a slider in the middle, and a slider to the right. We're going to talk about each one and show you what they do. This slider to the far left, it deals with brightness. If you turn it down, it gets dim. If you turn it up, it gets bright. If you stretch it all the way, it gets like psychotic bright and makes your brain hurt, which I would not recommend. So put it down here where it should be. This rightmost control is your brightness. But there's another animal at play here, which is this guy in the middle. This is how you adjust your contrast. That's the difference between light and dark. If we take this and slide it to the left, see how a lot of the darks go away and everything's just kind of a hazy gray? But if we move it to the right, the difference between light and dark is very stark. You can see it. Like we have the green grass and the shadowy figure, who I'm not going to tell you who it is, Chloe! But anyway, if you move this back and forth, you'll have either high contrast or low contrast if you want to do something weird with your image. And then if you move this to the right, you'll have psychotic brightness versus really dim brightness. You want to know the place where I use this the most? If I have a special graphic and I'm putting words over the top of them, and I want the background to be dark so that the words pop out, I usually crank it down. You probably won't have to do that, but if your image looks a little funky and you want to play with the brightness, that is how. Remember, the brightness is the outermost, and the contrast is the innermost. The next thing to talk about is saturation. No, that's not how wet your computer is after you spilled your milk on it during breakfast. It just talks about the amount of color in your shot. So if I take this slider and I crank it to the right, it's going to go absolutely psycho. See how that's like the day glow green and like the blue of Gregory's shirt is like jumping out at me? If you turn it all the way down, guess what happens? Classic black and white. So, can we work in black and white? Yeah! Just come in here, click on your palette, turn the saturation off. If you like it in the middle, put it right there. Finally, let's talk about color temperature. A weird term, but pretty easy to understand. You know how when you're outside and the sunlight is all yellow? If you want to play up the natural light and make it look like sunlight, pump up your color temperature and make it warmer, which means more yellows and oranges. If you want to make it look like you're in a building with lots of boring blue fluorescent lights, go to your left and the image becomes more bluish. If you like it in the middle, which most of us do, park it right there. But here, with this little color palette, we can do brightness, we can do contrast, we can do saturation, which is the amount of color, and then we can do color temperature to make it more like an outside scene or an indoor scene, all with this little icon right here. Thanks for listening. Get the notes. We'll quiz over this beastie tomorrow. I'll see you. Bye-bye.